All right. So to kick this off, hey team, we're here to talk about Harmony Mobile today for October's Tech Bite. You've got me, Zach Sloan, your security engineer. Uh, I'll be presenting the features and functionality of Harmony Mobile, and then we'll do a little bit of a demo. And if you have any questions, feel free to interrupt me. We also have, as you guys know, my account manager Dan Duhan on the call. He will help answer questions in chat if any arise. So yeah, as I mentioned, our agenda today is going to be first a discussion around mobile security as a whole, what the attack surface looks like, how, what concerns might exist in today's environment. Then I'm going to talk about the solution from Checkpoint called Harmony Mobile, which is a client that goes on your phones, and we'll talk more about it. I'll talk about some market analysis around Harmony Mobile, just what some others are saying in the market, whether that be, labs that are testing us or other uh, customer references and things of that nature. And then I'll quickly touch on a new addition to the Harmony mobile platform, which is just that it integrates with our Harmony SASE product for, SASE on endpoint devices, so that your mobile can also be secured by that Checkpoint Cloud connection. And then lastly, as I mentioned, we're going to jump right into a demo. First, I'll show some examples of how threats may be protected on a phone, what that might look like to your end users, and then I'll jump into the portal and show you what that might look like from an admin point of view. So firstly, talking about mobile security as an attack surface, it's a pretty weak front when we talk about different attack vectors. Not a lot of companies and organizations secure phones, and a lot of people, are using mobile phones on top of it. Um, as we can see, the stats on the page are that we have 84% of businesses that allow BYOD devices, and that 70% of all office workers use their cell phones for work purposes. Um, as I mentioned, there's not a lot of mobile security installed on these BYOD devices, of course, and as a result, we're seeing that about 30% of all attacks are started from mobile. And that's, as since last year, that represents a 29% increase, or a 59% increase of mobile malware since last year. Um, Again, this raises the same questions of, since we're talking about people using their mobile devices, which, are risky, since don't have any security installed on them, would you connect risky devices to your corporate resources? The simple answer should be no. And that's why we have different solutions for mobile devices as well as SASE solutions on top of them that will potentially help different ways to patch some of those mobile concerns. Um, with that said, most of those things can't actually be managed outside of mobile devices. You often need a local agent on those devices. Some examples of things that can't be secured from anything outside is, an understanding of what apps might be installed on the phone, whether or not a site that they're traveling to is malicious, things of that nature. So talking about Harmony Mobile, we have a nice little view of the app, which I can show myself as well for you. We do a few main things. This first vector is application protection. Harmony Mobile prevents malware from infiltrating employee devices by detecting and blocking malicious download applications in real time. That includes sideload prevention. Next, we monitor your network. So we have on-device network protection, which extends our network security technologies from other devices onto your mobile devices. That includes anti-phishing with zero phishing, which is Checkpoint's solution for scanning forms as you type into them, so that we know whether or not you're sending to the authentic version of that domain or to a potential phishing site. Of course, there's others that are included here, blocking access to malicious websites, conditional access if you'd like to, uh, you know, make sure that your employees can't browse to certain things, protected DNS, of course, Wi-Fi network security when you're trying to sign into a network that might be trying to operate as a man in the middle, things of that nature. And then things on the actual device include, OS vulnerabilities, CVEs within the mobile space, any risky configurations that might exist, any rooting, any jailbreaking. Again, this extends to the side-loaded applications we mentioned earlier. And then lastly, we have file protection that includes download prevention, and scanning to see if files are malicious. There's the sandboxing that includes scanning files that are already stored to see if they're compromised in any way. Um, and we do all of this, as we said, this is kind of a multi-layered approach, right? I mentioned the four different uh, attack vectors, but we deploy four layers of protection. So on the top, we have the device posture and configuration. It's kind of our first line of defense. That's all about the risky posture, any CVs, any device posture configurations you'd like in your environment. And then we do preemptive device defense, which is, protection from phishing, protection from uh, downloaded files before they reach the device. Then we have on-device protection, even if a threat manages to make it all the way through. Those first two layers will make sure that it's not activated. We have detection on those apps and analysis based on our threat cloud. Any app or file will not be allowed to be installed or executed. Um, and then lastly, any actions that are found to be malicious that are happening on the device, we're able to stop, such as command and control servers or any sort of bot trying to take action, without your knowledge. So we'll kind of go through those four with kind of screenshots and a little bit more information, and then I can show it to you. But in short, this is our operating system CV assessment for mobiles. We're able to uh, take an assessment and see what vulnerabilities exist in the world and then in your environment and see and it enables you to see how many and which devices have which operating systems and what CVs are available for each of those. You can obviously set per policy questions of upgrades and the like to make sure that we're not running on operating systems that have major CVEs exposed in the world. File protection is another key differentiator for us. Risky file, the mobile can serve as a risky entry point. Well-known examples, for high exposure attacks have been compromised PDFs and GIFs that can get on the phone and do additional things. Harmony Mobile scans any file that a user is trying to download and blocks the download if it's found to be malicious. We use a threat cloud intelligence as well as emulation to make sure that the file is not going to do anything it's not supposed to do. Here's a little screenshot or a little video of us scanning the file, finding that it's malicious or violates the organization in some way. And then you can see a event center within your phone of the different recent threats. We talk about phishing and zero phishing all the time. When you receive a link, you can click on that link and zero fish will activate to ensure that you're not clicking on a malicious link. Alternatively, there is an ability to manually scan a link within Harmony Mobile. So if you'd ever like to do that, you can. In some cases, however, this isn't a question of download of phishing protection. This is a question of things that are already on the device. And so we use what's called the mobile application reputation service to detect mobile apps that might be considered risky for one reason or another. I can show in more specifics later, but in short, there's different uh, types of things that apps can do, and based on your profile, you can decide whether or not uh, different features might come across or might relate to different levels of risk. Um, Additionally, when we're doing application analysis on the device, we're doing lots of different things through our threat cloud to ensure that the application that you're using is doing what it's supposed to do. That includes known antivirus feeds, that includes a behavioral engine or behavioral risk engine that's running on your device to ensure that, things are behaving in, human or non-malicious manners. Uh, we have dynamic sandboxing as we talked about before, and a few other things as well. When these actions take place on your phone, there are a few different ways that your users will be communicated with, and I'll show this as well. But you'll get a block page, which you as the admin can edit to say whatever you'd like. But in this case, the default is access to the site. In this case, it's a blocked site. Access to the site is blocked according to the security policy of the organization. If you think it's a miscalculation, you can report that to your admin and it gives you a category. In this case, you can change what this text is, as much as you'd like. And then additionally, there's a notification banner at the top. At any time, you can go to your phone and see where what your status is. In this case, we've handled all threats and we're considered to have no threats. So let's quickly talk about what the market has to say about checkpoints. So we in Forrester back in 2024. Oops, let's go back one. Forrester in 2024. You can see we're in the top right hand quadrant. Yet again. We have a link for that if you'd like to see it. It's been released, of course. That was a couple, almost a year ago at this point, or a little over a year ago. Wow. And then earlier this year, we were released in Miracom also as the highest security efficacy, top right quadrant per usual. Last thing I'm going to mention today is that we were also ranked at the highest tier for by IDC in terms of the number of supported mobile security features. And then we already mentioned Forrester Wave. We can move on. So customers like us too. We have lots of references that we can share. Um, Last thing I wanted to mention before jumping into a demo is just that for anybody who uses the or has heard about Harmony SASE from Checkpoint, that's an endpoint client that uses Checkpoint Cloud to secure connections into and out of your organization. And we've now integrated that as well with the Harmony mobile client so that you can have that same secure connectivity uh, coming from your device, from your mobile devices as well. Just a dense chart here. With SASE only, there's some amount of security we can do against the connections coming from your phone. So this can be installed as the client with only SASE that does, just posture checking and some partial network security, or with mobile, with Harmony Mobile plus the mobile SASE client, together. You get all the features of mobile plus all the features of SASE. And for the purposes of mobile threat detection, we can't come up with a better way to secure mobile devices. So cool. Let's jump into the portal, and I've got a few things to show. So I guess before going to the portal, I'm actually going to share my Harmony mobile client. So just to get a peek of that. So ignore the events. I was messing with stuff earlier, but so this is what a user will see when they open their own client. Not that they ever need to pass for after install, but they're always welcome to. Um, First off, it just is you can always see what events you might have. In my case, just for kicks, you can see some of the websites that I've been playing with that I'm going to show you momentarily. But at the bottom here, you can see different device security. You can see if you're compliant with your employees or as an employee, you can see if you are compliant with your organization's uh, policy as granularly as you'd like. You can see what each of these do. You can see what network protection is turned on. It's a VPN profile. You can see what applications you have and what's considered compliant or risky. Um, Again, this is all based on your policy. Any files that you've recently downloaded would be seen here, and then any Wi-Fi networks that you're connecting to, whether or not they have been scanned, if there have been any attacks detected on those scanned things, and then on the network detection front, we're scanning all the URLs you go to, and you can see, recently I've clicked on 5 in preparation for today. So this is most of the client. Otherwise, there's some settings. There's a what's new page, but and if you as an admin would allow them to suspend network protection, that's a setting you can have on. Wanted to show you quickly what an attack might look like. So this is just a demo page that I have that lets me show, different ways, different block pages as you might see them as a end user. So if I try to go to a phishing site and I click on a phishing link, this is the block page that I will see. Again, this can be changed. I know we saw it in the presentation, but I wanted to just give a firsthand example. There's several more like this. If I wanted to, try to download a configuration profile, this is not going to be from a website. This is just a download. Oops, sorry. This one is going to be just a download. And we should be getting a block. And we're getting a block for trying to download any form of spyware, which in this case would be a management profile on the device. Um, if we're trying to browse, there's just examples of different things, right? If we're trying to download a malicious doc, we're going to see a scan in progress. Your file is currently being scanned. And when this finishes up, in this case, we'll get a block page, I believe. Um, and then obviously, as I mentioned with files earlier, we can always go check the status. The status of this one is still in progress. Um, and so we can just move on. So yeah, this is the client and what a block page might look like. As I mentioned, you can always edit your block pages um, nice and easily. So I'm going to stop sharing on my phone and go back to my screen here. Cool. So I imagine most of you are familiar with, let me move this panel. I imagine most of you are familiar with the Infinity portal, right? You've seen this before. You've seen the full suite of checkpoint applications available from within this portal. Today we're talking about Harmony Mobile. So when you're on Harmony Mobile, like everything else, you first boot up to an overview page. You can quickly see the number of devices in your organization, the risk associated with each of them, how many security events have been trending over time. You can see top threats per device. There's suspected malware in these two devices. Um, good overview type of page. Of course, there's always a get started page to help you learn how to, add more devices, how to build policy, how to sync with your UEMs, those sorts of things. Moving through quickly, you can see a list of all of the devices that are part of your organization. You can, of course, build new groups for the purposes of deploying policy to individual groups. You can use your identity providers as well to use any groups that you've previously created. You can send new application or new devices out. You can have you can request a response from an application, so if a device is live, you can send notifications, all that good stuff. But where some of the money really lies is in building policies. So I don't know how interesting these policies are going to be, but we can go through them together. So as an example here, we have different policies applied to different groups. This bottommost group is a catch-all for global that will be applied to any user that is not already part of another user group with a policy applied. With that said, you can see a few other rules here that apply to specific teams. So in this case, there's a group for finance that might get a different security policy than HR, who might get a different security policy from internals for whatever reason, versus contractors or externals in that case, or any other different grouping that you can think of. Maybe the IT team has slightly more lenient policy than HR or whoever it may be. So if we just click into any of these policies, you can see, as I mentioned, that there's four main policy types. There's device policy, the on-device protection I mentioned. There's application security, there's file security, and then there's network security. So to quickly go through some of what these features are, and we're not going to be able to go through all of them because, again, there's just too many here, but the way that we do policy in mobile is all about risk tolerances. So different things will allow you'll have different things that you'll set to different levels of risk. So for example, we have here non-compliant client version is set to a high level of risk. The condition for being non-compliant is that you're not updating within 2 months. Additionally, you can set individual client versions or OS versions that are not permitted. Um, but in this case, it's high. It could be no risk, low risk, medium risk, high risk, or I think very high risk. I'm not an admin on this portal, so we're not going to be clicking in too deep. But settings for device include iOS security, iOS and Android security settings. Things like, in this case, device settings include whether or not it's jailbroken, what certificate profiles are installed, if location settings are off. Within Android, there's a lot of the same, whether it's a rooted device, whether or not encryption is disabled, whether or not there's a VPN lockdown. Again, locations are going to be, another consideration. We can talk about OS vulnerabilities, such as how old is the version of iOS. If you wanted to have this similar to above, you could set this to make sure that your iOS is, on the newest version or whatever it might be. That includes security patches, that includes CVEs, as we talked about earlier. And you can get specific with some CVEs if you'd like to add CVEs to the list that a specific device risk, we discovered a CVE from, a specific operating system of Android, and we want to make sure people aren't on that operating system, tag that CVE and make that risk level severe, and it will force users to update off of that version or be non-compliant and not be able to connect to those corporate resources. We can move on to application. This is all about risky applications. You can define applications that are uh, allowed by different classification. So backup tools in this case have no risk. Dangerous applications are considered medium risk. And you can always hover over to see exactly what this means. Device tracking tools, remote access, different categories that can have different levels of risk. That includes generative AI as well. You can specifically block traffic from those applications that have certain risk levels if you'd like. You can add and edit the categories that we've spoken about above, and you can of course draw exceptions for specific packages and applications, despite the category they might adhere to above. With file downloads, we're doing we can say where you can and can't download files from, as well as what the designation is regarding downloading new applications and configuration profiles and the like. And then maybe most interesting is the network section. We're doing content inspection for malicious sites that you might be connecting to, as well as phishing sites. There's conditional access where you can, give domains that are fully whitelisted or fully blacklisted. There's filter categories within our URL filtering blade. So for different websites, you can say we want or don't want our employees to be allowed to go to them. So for example, you could say you don't want your employees' phones to be accessing gambling websites or work webs or gaming websites or anything like that. And here you can also choose to show the event in the dash where this is more of a clutter for log situation, and or whether you show the event to the end user. There's certainly you can block locations, you can allow locations, you can specifically whitelist applications, things of that nature. Within the Wi-Fi network, we're doing different Wi-Fi protection, as I mentioned earlier, making sure that we're not connecting to Wi-Fi networks that are malicious in any way. That includes making sure that we're not connecting to man in the middle. That includes that no one's doing any HTTPS inspection against us, things of that nature. We can include SSL certificates that we allow, because that might be something we use when we're on site, for our own internal HTTPS inspection. Additionally, we can scan for rogue access points. We can get an understanding of what is connected to the Wi-Fi network that you're on, just for the additionally, there's settings here where you can adjust the risk level and enforce your DNS protocols to be forced to use the on-device mobile network protection on Harmony Mobile. There's a few different settings here. Obviously, we can get more in depth with anything like this. Lastly, for the Harmony Mobile alone piece, we can do phishing scans against received text messages as well, of course. And then the last thing here is to turn the Harmony Mobile service and connect it to the Harmony SASE. You would have to enable SASE access, and then there's additional risk profiles that you can set for devices that are connected through SASE or not through SASE. That's the main deal with policy. To quickly show, to quickly show what the logging and alerts and all that look like, we should be able to do that. Let me refresh my page. This is where you're able to see events and alerts that are happening. You can filter by different event types. You can filter by different devices. All these different filters up at the top can be filtered. Of course, you can print reports. You can export this data, anything like that. Um, Within the application, unfortunately, the demo, of course, is kicking it right at the last second. But within here, you're able to see the different levels of application risk across the installed applications on your devices. Same deal. Network, we're able to see what you know what networks we've connected to that aren't working. In any case, forensics is where you're able to go see the logs, to go see what events have taken place within your organization, and to get a better understanding of an overall view, as well as a granular view if you want to search through. Um, so I know I didn't show quite everything that the application has to offer, but of course, we'd love to get more in depth at any time. There's plenty to show, and we would love to get an opportunity to show you. So just to close up, I understand we're running right up against time here. So to close up, I wanted to just touch on the fact that Harmony Mobile protects your organization from increasingly prevalent mobile threats. Again, through multiple different vectors that we spoke about earlier today. And then additionally, that there's a meaningful integration that we've added between Harmony Mobile and Harmony SASE to deliver that complete and secure mobile access, in tandem with the Checkpoint SASE cloud. So with that, I guess we're saying thank you. And I'll distribute the recording on my YouTube and everything else so that you can take a look at a future date. This is not the only